everybody. Happy Father's Day to those of you who are fathers or paternal figures in some form or another. Welcome to Rosie Speaks. Today I have Bjorn, whose last name starts with a Z and is like my mundane real name, and I'm not going to pretend to pronounce it. So hi, welcome.
Hi, how are you?
I am all right. I'm combating some internet problems on this end, currently trying to record and upload simultaneously because I forgot that it was Wednesday in recording days. I'm tripping up on myself a little, but that's all right.
To be fair, it's quarantine, so everybody kind of forgets what day it is. Time is just
a construct. Yeah, I have no idea what day it is.
Yeah, it's hot garbage. I forget left, right, and center what day it is, so don't worry about it.
Yeah, and like my real world is going through some like real hectic changes, like with Brandon and his management stuff getting.
That's super exciting. So congratulations to him. That's fantastic.
It is very exciting, but also right now kind of frustrating because they're doing this like, well, maybe I want to put you here, or maybe I want to put you here, and I'm like, can you like pick at least like a central location so that I can move?
Yeah, give me some sort of so I can start making progress somewhere. Yeah.
Nah, that's not what life's about these days. It's just about like, oh, here you go. This is what's happening next week.
It's the meme that came out where I miss precedented times. So yeah. Yeah. I miss precedented times.
I'm over unprecedented times. Everything is unprecedented.
Yeah. Let's get some normality back, please.
Okay. So, I have a couple of questions for you.
Sweet.
Firstly, so you are a second-generation Scadian, correct? Right. Your parents are SEA people as well. So my question to you is, as a second-generation Scadian, do you experience peer fear?
Peer fear. Well, I would definitely say when I first started, I did, mostly because, so yes, both my parents played back when the dinosaurs roamed the earth. So, and I'm sure I'm going to get absolute hell for that from a million people. So, but whatever. But yes, they played back in the day, and myself, we didn't actually get involved until I remember. At one point, I remember looking down at photo albums and seeing all of their pictures from getting married, and my dad always kept his old armor out in the garage and everything stuff, and I remember looking at them and asking my mom about it and what it was all about, and so she was kind of explaining it to us and took us out to an event, and that was where I got hooked. My brother and my sister never really got into it, so my sister kind of dabbles from time to time, but my brother just never really was his thing. So when I first started, I picked up heavies immediately, and I was squired to my dad. But with my mom and my dad jumping back into it and them kind of being my first introduction to the society, going around and meeting all of these different people was it was scary in the sense that I was meeting a lot of different people, but at the time I didn't really know what a peerage was or what it even really meant or anything like that. So I wouldn't really say I had peer fear at that point. But then as things kind of started to dawn on me as to what it was and what things meant and stuff like that, there was a phase there for sure where I kind of went through peer fear, that kind of stuff, where it was making sure I was watching my P's and Q's and trying to, like, for me, the titles was always like a big thing with peer fear, was like making sure that I was saying the right things to the right people, like Your Majesty and Your Highness and all of this stuff and everything. Like all of that was super rough in the beginning. But I think just like with any hobby or any sort of organization, the further you kind of start to go down the rabbit hole and dive into it, become more familiar with the people as people, it gets easier in that sense. The fear kind of starts to slip away a little bit. it gets replaced by the appropriate amount of respect for the station, as opposed to necessarily my fear of you. Like, I'm not afraid of you. Like, I know you are. You're my buddy. You know, like, yes, you're a knight, and I respect you as so, or you're a pelican, or you're Laurel, now master of defense. Like you're all of these things. But you're still a person, and I still know you. You know, like, you're still my friend. So I would say that it was a little bit of the opposite. The peer fear wasn't so much there for me in the beginning, mostly because just the introductions were pretty darn easy. Like, my mom and my dad were going around saying hi to old buddies that they hadn't seen in 10, 20 years, you know, or so. And because back then the SCA was not super kid friendly, you know. So it was one of those things that when my brother and my sister were born, they stopped playing. So, and it wasn't one of those ones, like, so I didn't quite have maybe necessarily the same experience as you, Rosie, where you were born and raised in the SCA, and but my equivalent amount of peer fear is probably equal enough to yours, in the sense that I wasn't really a newcomer from the get-go. I wasn't super scared of the Knights and the Pelicans and the Laurels and things like that, and not that I had a healthy fear of them, but not an unapproachable fear, you know.
No, it was more of a respected boundary type thing as a kid. At least, excuse me as I choke on tater tot. It was more like that. That's just what you were taught. It was, they were an authority figure who deserved X amount of respect.
Exactly. It was an appropriate respect level, as opposed to a fear that I was going to do something wrong, or I was going to, you know, say the wrong thing, or that type of stuff. It was more of just a, hey, this is an important person, you know, like, so, and that was kind of what we were raised with anyways, you know, like, I was in Boy Scouts, and, you know, we were always raised with that kind of mentality and such. And, you know, I was born and raised Catholic, so authority figures are, you know, they're important, you know, so.
Yeah. And I think that I have more peer fear as in my second coming of SEA than I did when I was a little kid.
Yeah.
So, like, I didn't start to become afraid of the proverbial peer until I was told that I needed to be. So one of the weirdest pieces of advice that I've ever been given was, you are too friendly.
And yeah, I see that. I could see how somebody would give that advice to somebody, and you could take that the wrong way necessarily, you know. But yeah.
Right. At the time, I did not understand what that meant. I got offended. I got upset because they were like, you need to stop being so friendly to this so-and-so because of their station. And I'm just like, so-and-so who I got like super drunk last weekend and I was cleaning them up. Excuse you?
Yeah.
Who are you?
Wait,
what?
Yeah.
And then later on, I sat there and I like had to think about like their word being too friendly might not have been the correct terminology. However, when said individual happens to be the king of your kingdom, and you speak to them as though you are at their house or
right.
Yeah. In an informal setting,
for sure,
in front of others, that can be perceived in the theatrical version of our game as inappropriate.
Right. Because we do want to make sure that we are, adhering to the appropriate stations and the respect that they deserve, because they have earned those stations.
Exactly.
And then making sure we ride that fine balance. Like, so the knighthood to squire relationship in general is a good example of that, because Drew is one of my best friends, you know, but he was also a knight within the society. So I have to make sure that the jokes I say with him in my fantasy football league about calling him a D-bag are not the same ones that I give him when I'm out on the field and we're having a conversation with other knights, you know, like that's just, you know, so yeah, the familiarity that you kind of, that swing that you go through from the like, oh, okay, now I'm starting to learn that these people are of importance, to a, you know, now I'm starting to understand necessarily what that means. can totally understand that transition, you know, and then having to, because having somebody tell you like, hey, you're being too friendly. What?
Like, isn't that the point?
Yeah, like I thought I was okay, but then you also have to observe that the fact that I can't go, you know, I can't come kicking your court down and be like, but I know this guy, like he's my best friend, you know, like you still need to observe appropriate protocol, you know, that type.
Correct.
So.
And so in a couple of my more recent episodes, I talked a lot about being kind and like how at the end of the day, everybody is just human. And so I could see how this, like bringing this topic up, could see as like a counterintuitive to what I've been saying about how everybody's human. And it's not, because I mean, yes, that person who, like, I have friends who have served as kings and queens or whatever, and they're people who I like talk to every day or on a regular basis, and I have a very, very close friendship with.
For sure.
So I have that personal relationship with that person. However, when we are together participating in our theatrical recreation and my friend happens to be a sitting royal, I can still be his friend and his whatever, but I can't be like calling him a douchebag while he's sitting on the throne. That defeats the point of the game.
Right, yeah.
So that's where that distinction comes from. You still treat each other like your friends and like you're humans, but you keep it to be, I don't know how to say that.
You keep it appropriate, the appropriate setting. Yeah. So in the society, just as in any other organization or any other game or any other, you know, hobby that we're doing, there are, especially in reenactment ones, there are appropriate settings at appropriate times. You know, like if you're out having dinner with them at Chili's after an event, okay, fine. Maybe you're having a regular conversation with them now at that point. But if it's in the middle of court, you know, we have to be aware that yes, we are recreating these particular times. Not to mention, we're being observed by all at this point, you know, and if newcomers are watching, you know, this type of interaction, they're not getting the appropriate scope of what it is that we're looking at. Not that we're trying to dehumanize people or say that like, hey, this person isn't human and they don't deserve to be talked to in a casual fashion or anything like that. It's just that there is an appropriate time and place for everything, you know, like a very simplistic version of it is with your children when, you know, like I'm here playing at home with my daughter and my son, and I tell them to go get, you know, I don't know, go get me a towel or something like that. And they're like, no, you go get your own towel. And we're, you know, we're bantering back and forth and we're joking with each other. I'm like, go get me a towel, punk, you know, and like, and we're going back and forth. I don't expect that same type of behavior from my child when they go over to a friend's house. You know, I don't want them doing that same thing to their parents, you know, type of thing. But if they haven't been taught otherwise by somebody of a higher, you know, station or somebody that they respect, they're not going to understand what that interaction is necessarily. And lots of times you or anybody else who's up by the throne is in that particular position where they are teaching the rest of the populace what the interactions might look like, you know. So so it's pretty plain and simple. There's an appropriate time for an appropriate behavior at an appropriate place, you know. So
and it goes to the theater of the thing.
Absolutely.
So it is a more appealing and sort of escapist theatrical moment if you are revering that crown as the crown.
Right.
Like it adds to the theater. So when I'm like, yo, Matt, that's taking away from the theater instead of
they're absolutely everybody comes to play the game for a different reason, and everybody plays the game differently, but we do want to be respectful of everybody's different way of playing. And there are times where you can still do that type of behavior that still meet your desire to play the game the way you'd like to play it. And then there are also times where you can still do what other people desire, which is the immersive feel to it, like you're explaining, the theatrical immersive feel, to the sense that I'm revering you appropriately for that type of moment. It still allows somebody else to play their game, and it doesn't take away from yours, you know, because you can do yours at a later time without taking away from theirs, you know. So, and I think lots of times people get a little wrapped up in that sort of almost scaredness, you know, concept of like, oh, well, I have to change the way I play the game because you don't like the way I talk to this particular person, and that's infringing upon me or whatever, you know. And it's like, don't be a baby. You can talk to him like that at Chili's. You'll be fine.
There is space for everybody to have fun,
exactly.
And that's what's important about it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think that it goes to, you had mentioned that having kids, is a sort of simple brass tack correlation, and I really like that because it is like you behave. It's the same person that behaves the same way with the same people in one situation, but differently in another situation. So I think that that's a really interesting point. And I'm going to actually bring up your kids. So you have two small children, a boy and a girl, who are adorable, by the way.
Thank you.
I would like to know for each of your children, what is your coolest dad moment with your kids in the SEA?
Okay, got it. I was like, that's a broad spectrum. Coolest dad moment in the SEA. So that's interesting because we are slowly transitioning to getting the children more involved in the SEA. We did not bring them out as much when they were younger, mostly because it just wasn't, we were already tired and exhausted and struggling enough as it is, as I'm sure all the parents out there in the world feel the exact same struggle, that by the time the weekends came around, with my wife working an hour and a half away and me being a stay-at-home parent and just wanting to get away from the children, and the children wanting my wife just there at any moment she could be there, between that particular struggle, by the time the weekends came around and there was an SCA event that happened, it was very much a trade-off. It was, hey, there's a rapier event going on this weekend, there's this tournament going on this weekend, who wants to go out? Okay, you go out this weekend, you go out and you take a breather, you get a couple hours away, and then I'll go out next weekend. It was very much a trade-off because that was our one moment where we could take a breather. So the kids didn't really have an exorbitant amount of involvement in the beginning years, type thing. So we are slowly trying to transition them and bring them out more often and stuff. So for both of the children, the two that come to mind, I think for me, is for Morgan, because Morgan has only been to a limited amount of events so far, with him being only 4 right now. So, but he did go out, and I wasn't actually there for this particular one, but this is secondhand via stories and pictures and everything and stuff. My wife took Morgan out to I want to say it's either Gildenhold or Leondemir. All right, so fun fact for the world, I am atrocious at SCA geography. Like, it's bad. Like, it's
You're only a sitting baron. It's okay.
It's so terrible. Like, if there was a word beyond just a monstrosity, that would be my knowledge level of geography. It's awful. I know Dunor, and I know Bakersfield, but I don't know all the stuff in there. And that's about it. But anyways, so she took him down to one of the events down south. All right, that's up here. That's all we describe things as. And there's everything down south, and then there's everything up north. But she took him to one of the events down there, and he had an absolute blast. He had a great time, but it was his first time that he got to go out and fight. So he got his they got some loner boffer gear and everything and stuff like that, and we mess around here at home and stuff like that from time to time, play fighting and things like that, but nothing really, outrageous. Like, I haven't shown him how to work on the Pel or anything. Hell, I'm still trying to figure out how to work on the Pel. But I haven't really shown him any of those things. But he went out and he had a great time, and he fought and he had a blast, and they went back and forth, and Jill took a bunch of pictures and sent them all over to me and everything and stuff. And I remember one of the pictures, and this is going to sound really funny and really dumb, but it was exciting for me, at least. In one of the pictures, he had a really good stance. Like, it was just like he wasn't fighting or anything like that. He just kind of struck a pose, and I was like, check that out. He's even got his right foot forward. He's got his little sword right there. Shield's in a good position and everything and stuff. And I was like, hey, check him out. I was like, that's super cool. So that was super fun for me to kind of watch and see him fighting and everything and stuff, because I picked up heavies, and I have been fighting heavies ever since then, but I've definitely taken periods of my life where I've had to step away from the SCA for a couple of years and take care of just general life as it is. Tell her to come say hi.
Bjorn says, come say hi.
I wanna see that beautiful face. Hi.
Came out and was yelling.
Sorry.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
No worries. So fighting has always been a part of my SCA experience. So it's always been super enjoyable to me, and I've had fun with it. But there definitely have been times where I've not been able to do it as often as I would like, just because I had to get real life in order, and in order to be able to continue to play the game. So seeing Morgan kind of enjoying that aspect of it, like I did when I was little, kind of always gives you a fresh perspective on things sometimes. And for Ella, for her, she's kind of dove into it a little bit more than what Morgan has. Like, he enjoys being there and stuff like that, and he enjoys the fighting and everything. But Ella, when she first came out, we took her to, I think one of her first events was Great Western, and she's kind of bounced back and forth between events here and there and stuff like that. But every time she's there at an event, she's always diving in, she's always jumping in, she's playing games, she hasn't gotten into the fighting. I don't know if that's ever going to really be her thing. Like, I'm totally not trying to like stereotype her or typecast her or anything like that, but she is without a doubt the girliest of girls, and I don't know that she will ever have a desire to, like, I've tried to get her to do physical things like play football and play basketball and do sports and stuff like that, and she's like, that's kind of gross. I don't know if I really want to do that. You know,
I can see Ella saying those exact words to you.
Yeah.
Just be like, no, Dad.
Oh, I'm good. That looks like it hurts. I don't really want to do that. So, which I love her for. It's great. Like, and we're very much we don't conform to gender norms, as one can see, and stuff like that. So we don't really care about that stuff. So no disrespect meant when I say girly girl, but just that sort of stereotype type thing is what she is. She cracks me up. But with her not being directly involved in the fighting and such, she still loves to go out and get involved and get her hands into whatever she can do. She does the arts and crafts, but more importantly for her, what she loves the most, and this is what I love about the SCA, is that she loves getting involved with people. Like, that's her big thing, is like she wants to go be around people and get involved with them and have fun with them and learn and talk to them and just be a part of the society, which is great for me, because it's why we all love being in the SCA anyways. It's all of those connections that we're making, so it's really proud for me to see her jumping into that with 2 feet and such. And when we were growing up, it was back in my day, in my generation, growing up and doing things like this was not, it was not cool. You were very much frowned upon for doing these types of things and stuff, and you were judged and bullied for these types of stuff. And I love the fact that Ella just kind of says to the rest of the world about it and just goes and does whatever she wants to go and do. And that's my favorite thing about it. So,
she really does not care. But it is also it's amazing to see kids volunteering. So I love that kids get involved in the fighting and the youth activities. That's so cool. But then you see Ella, who one day, we were short on ladies in waiting. I believe we were in Navaheim, or one of our northern baronies, and it was Her Grace Sita on the throne.
Mm-hmm.
And Ella just escorted her around all day long, held her basket, held her water, would make sure that she was eating and putting sunscreen on, and she was just the most adorable little helper on the planet. And
she genuinely loves helping. That's like probably one of her favorite things to do, is to go around and make sure people are taken care of and help and because it helps her feel a part of the experience, like it helps her feel included, and she is absolutely enamored by the queen and the princess, whoever it is at that particular time. That's her BFF. She loves that particular station, and she exonerates it to a degree that is really fun to watch because she loves it, and she will do whatever she can to make sure that she
embodies it. She is what we all live for. It really is, because that I remember being Ella and seeing the princess and the queen as the princess and the queen.
Right.
And
right.
and you can still see that with Ella, and it's adorable, because then she is also getting the same sort of experience that I had, where the queen is holding your hand and walking somewhere with you.
Yeah, and you're like, oh my god,
okay.
How cool is that?
You get so afraid inside, but also it's so exciting.
It is.
So I love that. That's amazing. And I love that you and Roisin are so supportive of the kids doing their own thing. Roisin and Ella sewing.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Yeah. We always, when we early on, when we started having conversations about what the kids were going to do, later in life, and sports and activities and things like that, we started to have to kind of plan those things out in terms of hey, who's going to go do ballet and who's going to go do piano lessons, all the prototypical parent stuff. We had a conversation pretty early on about how we don't really care what the kids go and do. We care, obviously, but we don't care in the sense that we're going to try and guide them in one direction or another. Whatever they have an interest in, they go and do. They go and have fun. They're their own individual people. My job is to help guide you through that process, not necessarily choose it for you. So, but we also compromised on in that degree, in the sense that I don't care what they go and do, but if we pay for something, then you're finishing. So that was always my big one. I'll never force you to go and do something. If we go and play football and you're like, I like football, I don't want to play football, I'm like, all right, fine, then don't play football. If you're like, I want to go do ballet, all right, then go do ballet, then fine. But if I sign you up for a 6-week session and I drop $120 on that thing, you're finishing the 6-week session. All right. And then after that, if you don't want to do it, then I don't care. You don't ever do it again in the rest of your life. I don't care. But finish the session. We paid. But yeah, whenever Ella has a desire to go and do something, or Morgan, we definitely make sure that we try and cultivate that in whatever it is. And if it means doing something that somebody thinks is going to be uncool, the SCA is a very nerdy hobby, I still get made fun of it periodically by my friends. And I'm like, dude, shut up. What are you, 35 and you're still making fun of me for making life choices? Get out of here. Go do something. So, but I want them to have that kind of confidence as well, to understand that they can go do whatever the hell they want to, as long as they love
I
it.
love that. That's a really great take on just bringing a child into the world. I love that. It's super fascinating to hear the different things.
They've got enough things that they're trying to figure out, and they're trying to explore this world, and they're learning, and everything's a constant. Look, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to say kids have it super hard or something, but they do. They do have it hard in the degree that they're still learning all of these things, and everything is a constant sensory input. Everything's a constant learn for them. They haven't gotten to a stage in their life yet where they're starting to look back and go, hey, I know how to do this. I've done that before. Let's do it this way. They're still constantly learning these things. So the last thing they need is people trying to persuade them not to do something that they don't want to do, or persuade them to do something that they don't want to do, and be like, oh, don't do that. That's not fun. Just let them do it. Let them figure it out. Let them have the ease of knowing that they can try something, and if they don't like it, then they don't like it, So I never really understood that concept of why do you want to do that? That sounds dumb. Or maybe it does sound dumb to you. Maybe you don't like it, but to them it's interesting. So let them go try. So, leave him alone. Quit being a punk.
Quit being a punk. I love it.
Let them go play, man. They're not.
Best answer. Quit being a punk. Okay. On that note, I have a question from your darling Baroness.
Ooh.
Roisin asks.
No, I have not emptied the dishwasher yet.
What about the laundry? Were you supposed to do that?
She did not ask about that this morning, but I
Well, she asks a question that you can definitely answer. Her question is, what is your favorite SEA moment of all time?
Oof, that's rough. I mean, so the first one that immediately comes to mind is probably the one I'm going to tell you about. This is obviously not to try and say that any other ones that happened within my SCA career haven't been amazing to me and special to them. I have a gajillion of them because that's kind of what we all hope for in the society, is that we're going to have a bunch of these great memories that are going to make us happy. And I have a whole crap ton of them. But to get all lovey-dovey and mushy-mushy and put her back on the spot, this one actually involves her. So I am obviously still trying to become a knight, and I am still constantly striving to fight better and, be a better person and represent the knighthood, and it's in and of its entirety. And I'm still working on all of that stuff, obviously. And I remember when I first started in the society, I wanted to be, I was going to be the best. That was it. I was going to be king. I was going to do it in 6 months. Like, that was it. I'm just going to, and I'm totally not trying to like toot my own horn or anything like that. I'm athletically gifted enough that vast majority of things that I do on an athletic scale, I can be mediocre in the starting point. Okay, so I've never really been exceptional at anything necessarily, but I am athletic enough that I can do pretty well at most things. So I was like, okay, I've got a decent start. I should be able to figure this out, right? Obviously, I have not. So fast forward, 14 some odd years later, and I haven't reached that particular point yet, and I don't necessarily know if I ever will. But for me, it was always important. My thought process transitioned when I met Jill and when she became my consort, and we started dating and started going.
Jill is Roisin, right?
Oh, yes. Yes. When I met Roisin, yes. When I met her and we started, dating regularly and then got married, and your focus and your transition begins to kind of shift at that point from being I'm doing this for my own, sort of personal glory, I guess, and for my own desire to achieve a particular goal that I'm trying to get to, I want to showcase my wife. I want to elevate her at some point to the station of queen, or princess and then queen, as the case may be. And I want to do well in order to represent her well, not only just in terms of bringing her up to that particular level, but I want to show that that she inspires me to be a better fighter, to work harder at my craft, to be a better person and eventually one day become a knight. She inspires me to do all of these different things. And I was struggling for quite a few years. So we got married. Before we got married, it took probably about a year to 2 off, and then probably another year, or so or 2 after we got married, just working and getting my life in order, going back to school, getting my degree and all of that stuff and everything, just trying to get everything situated. And so when I came back and I started fighting, I wasn't a super hot fighter to begin with. So, and I had to kind of start back from the ground up. So I was struggling there for a really long time. I was out, and I'm still out very often in tournaments, and I'm not the best, and I'm still struggling with that aspect of it. And having her as my consort, I was struggling mentally with the concept of not representing her well. I felt that she deserved a better fighter, quite frankly, who could showcase her better than I could, if that meant anything. Showcase is such a it's such a shitty word. She's not like a prize that I'm trying to put out there on a pedestal or anything like that. But with the theatricalness of what we do and the romanticized version of what it is that we do, this fighter consort relationship that kind of happens in there. And I felt that she deserved a better fighter at that point. I remember us having a conversation about this, and me basically saying, look, like, hey, I don't know if there's ever going to come a point where I'm going to get good enough where I'm going to be able to be any bit of a challenge to be able to challenge the throne and see if I can ever get up there. I don't know. There may be. I'm not trying to say I'm not trying to defeat myself. I'm just being realistic here, and I was having this conversation with her about how, maybe we needed to start exploring the concept of you finding somebody who could, I'm going to use it again, showcase you to the degree of how amazing you are, and we had a lot of back and forth conversations about that. And we every night at Great Western, we have a family dinner with our household where we kind of go around and we talk about our favorite moments that kind of happened at war. And she made me a new favor because I was still wearing her favor from back when I was 20. And she made me a new favor, and I'll show it to you. It's a little ratty tatty, but you can kind of see it there. It's got a bear paw with her, which is mine, and then it's got the Rose, which is hers, on the inside. So she combined our devices into sort of one, and kind of made a yeah, make me talk about that crap. Yeah, I'm trying not to lose it right now.
He's so mushy. It's cute.
I'm mushy. She basically said that she doesn't want anybody else. She wanted, she felt that I was more than a good enough fighter for her, and that what was important was that I upheld her honor, and that regardless of whether I made it for, rounds or won the tournament, that was the important part to her, was that I was representing her in that degree. And that there was never a moment that she was worried I was cheating, or I was, being a bad person within the society, or anything that would besmirch her honor. And that was really important to her. So that's probably my favorite moment, mostly just because it's what helps us kind of grow and understand that it's not always necessarily just a game. It is a game that we are playing, but we are building a lot of bonds and memories and things like that are happening that are going to be important and last with us for the rest of our lives. So that was a big turning point for us, in terms of our fighter consort relationship. We've never had an issue in terms of our marital relationship or anything like that, or a romantic relationship, but the fighter consort relationship was rocky because of me, not because of her. Like, she's always been a stalwart person in that regard, and I just struggled with it mentally because I felt like I sucked. So sorry, that was a little long and winded.
No, I think it actually you actually answered two of my other questions in your story. So that's really, so it actually worked out for the better. Because also, I think it's very interesting that you shared a story like this, because Brandon and I had a similar discussion not that long ago about not about somebody else fighting for me specifically, but about what if we never become king and queen?
Right.
Is that going to be we have the same philosophical conversation, and I'm like, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
if
absolutely.
It's about you being my fighter, not about the crown. It's about you and I.
Yeah.
So I love hearing that you guys have a similar.
Yeah, because it's such a.
Hi, Morgan.
Morgan, come here. Come say hi. Yeah, go ahead. Come say hi. Hi. Yeah, it's an interesting conversation that happens, because you start to think a little bit less about the almost lost his head on that counter. You start to think a little bit more about the representation of your guys's relationship, and a little bit less about the achievement, because sometimes the achievement itself is obviously noteworthy. Like, to become king that's king and queen, that's amazing, like, but uh, sometimes we get lost in the concept so much of reaching the achievement, as opposed to necessarily what that journey meant to get there and why we want to get there in the first place, and like, we start to forget about that sometimes, because the achievement in and of itself that's the ultimate goal. It's like getting for me, it was like getting my Eagle Scout when I was growing up. Becoming an Eagle Scout was the pinnacle of Boy Scouthood. So that was what we were always trying for. And but you don't kind of realize until I use the term mature loosely, because I'm for sure not that, but you start to grow up a little bit, and you start to kind of, like you said, you start to understand a little bit more that it's not always necessarily about the end goal. It's about that process, kind of getting there. And as long as that portion stays intact, and as long as you don't lose that particular portion, whether or not you maintain the actual objective, or you get the actual goal or not, that doesn't sour the process at all. Like, you can still not become king and still not become queen and still maintain that same level of achievement, of having that type of thing. So, and we get these so with me, my friends who don't necessarily understand this stuff, well, why is that so important? Like, why is becoming king or queen important? Like, they're just people. Like, it's just a make-believe game. Yes, you're right. It is a make-believe game. I get that. Okay. But what you're not understanding is that it's all this stuff that goes into it to get to that particular point. Like, to become king and queen is not just, I don't just go up and say, hey, I want to do it. Like, that's just not how that works. Like, you have to put in countless hours of time training, and not to mention, on your guys' ends as consorts, you have to put in countless amount of time supporting and making sure that we're healthy, and making sure that we can maintain this type of schedule. Just being able to go out to events, especially for people, like, not obviously putting you guys down, but people who have children, making sure that, you can watch the children, so one person has the ability to go and do that type of training, like, the amount of teamwork that goes into it to get to that particular point is a lot of work. And that's just the fighting part of it. That's not the personality portions that go into it. Like we've seen this before, where the wrong personalities and the wrong people can be really, really good fighters and not represent the crown in the degree that it should be represented in the appropriateness that it should be represented in. So there's the character development that comes along with it. There's the growth as a person that comes along with it, heading in that direction. There's deciding if this is right for you. Do you feel like you can take on the responsibility of leading these people in the next period of time? Obviously, we could talk about this for hours, but like, there's tons of stuff that goes into this. So it's not just that thing. If I could just walk up and say I wanted to be king, it wouldn't be so important, like. so yeah, it's absolutely a conversation that you kind of have to have.
Has being landed Baron change your desire or your motivation to become king?
No. No, I wouldn't say no, because it's different. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine here in the society before we stepped up, talking about excuse me, talking about going and fighting in Crown and what should happen should you win the day, and stepping up as Baron and Baroness. And we were kind of walking through the comparison and making the apples for apple comparison, and kind of going down the line as to what the different positions meant and things like that and stuff. And they have their similarities, they have their minute similarities, but they don't at the same time in my mind. They're vastly different. On a very surface level, just the time frame that you're doing something like this for, in and of itself, is an entirely different ball game. while a simplistic version of the comparison can be made that being, Baron and Baroness, landed Baron and Baroness of a particular area is sort of a, a micro example of being king and queen as they do it over all the different places and stuff like that. It's a little bit more complicated than that. So for me, the concept of being Baron and Baroness really hasn't shifted our position over wanting to someday eventually win and rule at the same time, obviously. It hasn't really shifted our desire and our aspirations to do that, but it has absolutely given us a lot of insight into some of the different aspects of it that we may not necessarily have been aware of before, just because it's not exactly something you can go get a crash course on, so you don't like walk into collegium and go being king and queen 101, like it's kind of one of those things that you learn from observation, you learn from talking with individuals that you trust and people that can share their experiences and their stories with you. And then ultimately, much like swimming, you just get dumped into the deep end when you win one day and you figure it out, So, but it has given us a lot of insight in terms of our desire to want to do it. And it has shifted our thought process a lot from, and I admit this only because I feel like I have grown up a little bit. It shifts my thought process a lot from when I was younger, from the award of becoming king and queen, as opposed to necessarily the responsibility of becoming king and queen. Like what it is going to entail afterwards is, yes, you're going to have your moment in the sun for the day when you become king and queen. But then it's 6 to 9 months of work, like. Bribing children.
What are you buying online?
I have no idea. I don't know. It's probably something super expensive. I don't know.
So, you had mentioned something about shifting the perspective from the prize of winning and the responsibility of winning. Right. So, from the consort side, for me, as somebody who has dabbled in fighting and dabbled in art and dabbled in like a lot of other things, I'm very service oriented. And everybody's like, so I had this whole philosophical conversation about striving for peerage and how it shouldn't be frowned upon to strive for peerage. But in our kingdom, it's like there's like a weird air around those who are on their path to X or Y or Z or whatever comes before X, W peerage, because there are 4 now.
Yeah, I gotcha. W, X, Y, Z.
And so I no longer really say like, oh, I strive to become a pelican, even though that's the path that I walk on. And so my answer is I strive to support my partner, Brandon, in his path towards his peerage. Because at the end of the day, seeing him become a knight and seeing him win a crown is going to be the greatest feeling for me. For sure. And if he were to win a crown, then we together, him and I, will get to do the ultimate act of service that anybody can give to this kingdom, which is to carry the crown.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you have spoken or served as a king, if you have spoken to any king or queen, or been a king or queen, or a prince or princess for those kingdoms that have principalities, the weight you carry and like for the duration of your reign is heavy.
Yeah.
There is burdens that you just will never know that you had to carry or learn about. Things just happen. And that is while not all kings and queens have kept to the same standard, I guess. The most kings and queens serve their kingdom with the most love and genuineness And if Brienne and I were ever able to do that, like that is the ultimate goal. And it was really interesting trying to explain that to a group of people who weren't as intertwined with the politics of a king and a kingdom, I guess.
Sure. Yeah.
Because it's hard to explain, to be like, no, really, it's like probably the hardest 6 to 9 months of your life.
Yeah, it obviously I can't I can't speak to it obviously because I haven't been up there, but being in this micro example of it as with us being as Baron and Baroness, you are responsible for an exorbitant amount of things that are just not they're just not told to you, when you originally think about the particular position that you're going up there. And it is a lot of work. And obviously we're not trying to be like, oh, woe is us, like it is a great pleasure at the same time, like you get to serve and you get to do these particular things and help out your sort of fellow person and fellow Scadian with a lot of these steps that they're going through within the society. Everything from just the simple basic day-to-day interactions that the king and queen are having with their populace, making sure that those are positive and appropriate ones and that they're continuing to uplift their populace, all the way to the far more complicated political ones that happen internally that none of us even are aware of because they're not spoken of. So like there's a wealth of responsibility that comes along with the position that it's difficult to explain to the people who haven't really thought about it that far. And I was one of them when I first started. Like when I first started, it was just, hey, I want to get that award and I want to be king or queen, type thing. And then, also to kind of speak to the striving for peerage type thing, like it's one of those concepts as well. Like when I first started, I was like, yeah, I want to be a knight, like that's something I want to work towards, but you also, again, when you first start, you just think about the award, like you think about how cool this is going to be to be a knight and have that station and everything and stuff. And then you start to grow up and you start to learn and you start to see all of these different aspects of it that are involved in it. And in a weird, almost sadistic fashion, it doesn't make it it doesn't make it worse for you. It doesn't make you want to push it away. It makes you want it more because you understand that this is an important and vital role that must be fulfilled, and you want to do it. You want to help out in that regard,
Exactly. So that actually leads me into my next question. We're talking about in macro versus micro units. One of the questions that was sent in to me was this: what is the hardest part of being a baron? What is the best part about being a baron? And what is something that you didn't expect that you wish you had known beforehand?
I'm gonna think on that last one for a second. The first two are I have no idea what he just said. I have no idea. There's something would just say he's big into Pokemon right now. I don't know anymore. It's just all a bit. I don't know. I survive on monsters. I don't know.
Okay. Best part about being a baron.
So the best part, and so it was the best part and the worst part.
Yeah, the best part, the worst part, and then what is something you wish you had known beforehand?
Right, like I wasn't aware of, but I wish I had known. So the best part and the worst part are, in many cases, the best part and the worst part actually kind of end up going hand in hand. So they end up almost being solved but addressed simultaneously within themselves as the day-to-day proceedings go on. And I obviously can't speak for Rasheen, but for myself, I think the best part and the worst part are dealing with the people. And allow me to elaborate on that before I get ripped to shreds by my baronage. When you are the Baron and Baroness, there are obviously other offices that take place within your barony, and there a multitude of other people who are hard at work, and in many cases are putting in harder work than what we are in some of these situations. Like Felipe, is busting his butt day in and day out, and so is Ava and all the officers, and everybody's busting their butt day in and day out to continue to contribute to to our baronage, and keep us moving and keep us learning and growing and stuff like that. So the best part is dealing with those particular day-to-day proceedings, interacting with everybody within the barony, talking with everybody, learning about their life, enjoying their newfound passions that they're running into, that they're like, oh, hey, I found out about this type of weaving, or I saw somebody in the barony a couple days ago was talking about how somebody had just shaved their alpaca and they were looking to see if anybody needed, alpaca wool or something like that, so it's like little like things like that, we've had a recent bloom of brewers within the group and everything, and they're all sharing their different recipes and sharing their different beers that they're making and their meads, and and we've got an entire thriving rapier community that Rasheen is busting her butt on day and day out to work with them and be involved with them. We've got our small group of heavies people who are fighting. We've run the gambit on all these different things that are kind of happening, and being involved with those is super fun to see, because you're involved with every single one of those. It's not just like when you're a populace member and you're sort of picking and choosing almost which ones you want to do. Not that obviously you have to, but lots of times we tend to specialize, hey, I want to focus on archery for the next 6 months or a year or however long you bang into it, it's, but as Baron and Baroness, you have your fingers in all of these different things. You're supporting, you're uplifting, you're trying to talk to these people, you're encouraging them. So that is probably the best part, being involved with all of these people on the baronial level and watching them slowly, transition from the baronial level to the kingdom level, or just staying in the baronial level, or, not even necessarily coming out to SCA events, just coming to our all thing and doing whatever activities we're doing at that particular point. Whatever it is that's making them happy, watching that particular thing take place is super, super fun, so because when we first started, we were all that way too, we needed somebody to kind of help us and show us the ropes and, support us and uplift us and do all of that stuff. And we love being part of that particular journey. When we first stepped up, that was one of the first conversations we had. There were some whispers originally about the desire to downgrade within our barony and to get rid of the barony and move us down to a shire. And we said no. We said we wouldn't feel comfortable if we lost that without trying ourselves, to rejuvenate this type of thing. And if we try and we fail, then so be it. At least we put our money where our mouth was and we tried. And B, the other thing that we talked about heavily was the fact that we wanted to be that person for somebody that was for us when we were younger. When we first started, our time had come. We reaped the benefits of those who were in front of us, who helped guide us through these processes and get us involved and show us this entire world that we didn't know was out there. And now there are people out there who are struggling to find those people, and we wanted to be that person now. It was our time to pay our dividends back. So, and that's probably the best part. So, but like I said, the worst part comes hand in hand with that sometimes. Sometimes there are internal conflicts, sometimes there are struggles, sometimes there are tough calls and tough decisions that have to be made. With COVID-19 going on and all this stuff happening, we had to make the decision just to cancel Dunno Anniversary, and that was one that realistically was out of our hands, and that was still tough to do because we have so many people within the barony who are excited for that, and want to go out and showcase their arts and go and fight and want to be there for their barony because it's where their passion currently is right now, and having to call that off was rough, and that wasn't even the hardest thing we've had to do, so making those tough calls and those tough decisions, it's rough, and it weighs pretty heavily on your mind when you're already dealing with the stresses of life and parenthood and raising two little ones, then Jill being a working mother and a businesswoman and all of these other, and then maintaining our day-to-day relationships with our friends and our parents, and there's already a million other things happening right now. And then to add in the fact that, some people's experiences are predicated on what you do, and how you respond to certain situations. And it's a rough part of the job sometimes, it's tough. So hand in hand, you get the goods and you get the bads, but we've been fortunate enough that we've had the vast majority more have been good than have been bad, and we can't say how thankful we are enough. As for the thing we wish we knew beforehand, gosh. This is gonna sound kind of funny, but I think the thing we wish I say we like I'm talking for Rasheen. I'm really not. I'm talking for myself. I wish I knew beforehand just how picking communicative everybody was going to be. Like it has gone nonstop. Like you, and I mean this in both the positive and the struggling fashion of it as well, is that I love the fact that everybody is dove in so hard and everybody is, hard in the paint and jumped in with 2 feet and they're ready to go and they're doing all of these things and all of that stuff is fantastic. But you're on that particular thread. You're on that call. You're on that thread. You're in that meeting. You're there. You're go. And you like I feel like I've got at least 5 or 6 messengers all going at the same time. Where it's like, hey, we got ding, 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 like it's just popping up constantly. So I think I probably wish I had known. Like we had an idea, but obviously, just like I said earlier, you're not going to have a full idea until it starts happening. Just like with parenthood, everybody gives you a million books, and this is how we did it, and this is how you do it, and this is how you be the best parent in the whole world. You're not gonna know. You don't know. You don't know jack. You don't know anything until it actually happens. So, so you get some ideas and you get some tips and you get some tricks that kind of help you. But you enjoy.
Hi, Morgan.
You enjoy you just enjoy the beautiful.
That one's not Morgan. It's okay. I'm being attacked by a lizard right now.
Leia, shush. You just enjoy the beautiful ride for what it is, and you just keep trucking along, and you have a great time with the good times, and you try and push off the bad ones, and handle them when they need to be handled, and don't dwell on them. So.
I love it. That's super fantastic, and I loved the way that you shared that story and shared that answer. I think that it's super important to hear the real story, and the reality is you really are talking to people nonstop. My mom, who also is a sitting Baroness in Caid, talks about how it's a 24-hour job. Like she wakes up on her bed, checks her phone, and responds to messages. On her lunch, checks her messages, checks her email, and like it's just something that is constantly in the back of your head, because that's the effort that it takes, and that's the effort that she wants to put in.
Yeah, and absolutely. Like I said, it has its downsides to it, but it absolutely, for the most part, has its benefits to it. And it's watching those people continue to do what it is that they want to do. The more we get to say, yeah, go do it, have fun, is better.
Yeah, of course. All right, well, that leaves, so we have 3 more questions to get through, and then we're almost done. All right, so this is from Bray. She asks, when will His Excellency get some archery practice? He's going to be captain of the archers for Donndubain eventually, right?
Eventually, someday. So, Bray and I I love her to death. She cracks me up. Her and I have a fun little relationship because we smack talk each other about archery all the time, and she has been amazing and instrumental in us getting kind of archery going up here. And obviously it's kind of been put to a halt currently, but she's fantastic. She drives down from
Navaheim.
I was literally just about to say up north. I don't know.
Navaheim.
She drives down from Navaheim. I know she's with the horsemen. I was trying to remember where that was.
Well, she's in Navaheim. The horsemen are in Wintermist.
The horsemen are Wintermist, right? Yeah. But so she drives down from Navaheim, and she's done it for us quite a few times now. Where because we need a marshal, and I haven't gotten my butt in gear to get my marshal done for it and everything. And she's been amazing. She comes down and she marshals for us and shoots with us, and we have a great time, and we smack talk each other constantly back and forth. And I love her. She's fantastic. And she's come down and she's helped us get the whole practice going and helped me learn the equipment and the rules and everything and stuff like that. And she's fantastic. She's awesome. But yeah, I need to get my butt taken care of for that one. So yes, I will become hopefully the captain of the archer someday, but not right now.
Well, I also have from quote fan of Nerf bows.
Nerf bows.
It says fan of Nerf bows. He knows who I am. Has His Excellency read the Target Archery Marshall Handbook yet?
No, I have not. Leave me alone. No.
Oh, hilarious. All right. So the Faiza has our very last question.
Ooh.
Are you ready?
We have just recently acquired a keyboard piano for the children.
Now that we have been interrupted.
We did pretty good. We got pretty far without
We did.
Yeah,
8 questions.
We nailed it. We nailed it.
I'm pretty proud of us.
Yeah, high five.
All right, ready? The Faiza asks, are you going to try and chop your fingers off again?
I knew she was going to say that punk.
So, I'm sorry. I know that you've gotten recently into... Sorry. Hey, what are you eating? Fucking...
Are you talking about the 2-year-old or the dog?
The dog. The dog.
Applicable to both of them.
The dog. No 2-year-olds here currently. So yeah, when did you almost cut your finger off? So, that's new.
Yeah. So I just I've been woodworking now so I've got about that back so far. I can do that. So I've been woodworking now I think it's been about 2 years now, 2 or 3 years. And it's just a new passion I've just kind of been diving into, trying to sort of create a business for it. I have no idea where it's going to go, but I'm just trying to, more than anything else, woodworking has got a plethora of skills and little things that you kind of have to learn to do as you kind of go along. So I've been kind of developing those, and any of the products that I sell, I dump back into the shop and I get new equipment and stuff. But anyways, I was building a set of like box, like shelves that you can hang on the wall type thing, and then you put stuff on the inside of them. I don't know. It's some like new fancy thing that people are doing. But anyways, a buddy of mine asked if I could make a set for him and his girlfriend. Said sure. Made them. I painted them all up and everything, and I was drilling the holes through the top to be able to feed the rope through it so you could hang it up. And I made a really dumb mistake. The box itself is see-through, so it goes all the way through. I've never made one that's like that before. All my boxes are enclosed and everything and stuff like that. So as I was drilling a hole down through the top, I was holding on to this side of it and drilling a hole down, but the drill kept torquing on me because it was made of maple and it's hard, so I just kept, and I would think I was trying to drill too big of a hole.
So I got frustrated and I got upset. So I reached over and grabbed the other side of the box and pushed it against my body rather than using a vise like I should have done because I'm an idiot. And grabbed onto the box here and started drilling down, and I was putting my weight on it, punched straight through and down into my thumb, and it was a 1/2-inch drill bit, and it just went and just ripped my thumb to ribbons. So that little mark right about there, right there, that little flap of skin right there, that's what's holding a 1/2-inch chunk of my thumb on still. And so, yeah, it just went straight down in there, tore it to ribbons. Faisa and Drew were coming over for mimosas that morning because we're starting to kind of make our own little like bubble of people during the quarantine. And they were coming over for mimosas. And I had to rush over to the hospital, got it stitched up and everything. And they were like, yeah, you're going to have to go see a specialist. And they're like, we're worried about you having tendon lacerations and things like that. And so I was like, okay. So went in 2 or 3 days later, talked to the doctor, the specialist, and he was like, I'm not really going to know until I open it up and I get in there and see what, kind of damages have been done. He was like, it does look like from the x-ray you went clear down to the bone. So he was like, we need to get in there and look it up. So I went in, not this last Friday that passed, but the Friday before that. I went into, they put me under, I had surgery, they cut it open. He said, luckily it didn't look like I had any like full-blown tendon lacerations. I just had partial lacerations on it. So it sounds like he just did, it sounds like he just repaired some soft tissue that was on the inside. Didn't have to put any wire or anything in there and stuff like that. But I had a cast on, from, around my thumb and all the way down to here. I had that on for about a week and a half. Yesterday, I went in and talked to him, and he said that it looked pretty good. So he said that obviously I've got the cast off now, and he basically wants me to flex and work it out because it's really, really tight. The tendon is super tight because it's trying to fuse itself to the scar tissue right now, basically. And so I have to flex it and I have to work it out. And that section that that got ripped out, basically, he said that he was very, very surprised that it's still there. So he said he was very much expecting to come back in, take it off, and have to go do another surgery and basically just rip that chunk out and have my hand heal otherwise. But apparently there was like one blood vessel that was left in there, and I have blood flow back in it now, which is nice. And he said as long as I keep flexing it and I keep bending it and moving it and trying to use it and stuff like that, I should get full mobility back in it. So
mobility?
So fingers crossed, with any luck, I will get full functionality back in my thumb, because as we all aware, learning to hold a shield without a thumb is going to be a pain.
Well, happy Father's Day to you.
Yep. Yeah, I was super excited about that.
You kept that real quiet on the internet.
Yeah. I don't tend to post much on the internet unless it's.
But I will have to say, didn't you hurt yourself with your woodworking tools right before Great Western War too? Was it a sanding incident?
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Sanding incident?
Yeah. I learned that belt sanders can strip a thumb real fast.
You know what? It sounds like you just don't want to have thumbs anymore there.
They're really overrated. I mean, so I was joking with Jill. So I learned with Rasheen, sorry. I learned adaptation at its finest. So see how far apart these fingers spread? And these do not. I learned to re-grip with this. So since I've had to learn to re-grip with it, my fingers have gotten super wide. So thumbs are really just overrated. Like you can use other things. It's fine. It's not a big deal.
So one time I had a cast on these 3 fingers and part of my thumb.
Oh,
So I literally only had like this finger
Just
and,
like your little like
and the
little
top
claw.
and the top knuckle of my thumb out, and that was it.
Oh.
So I could write, but that was it. And I can definitely tell you that when you're writing and you have to hold the pen like this, it's better if you just don't write.
If you just don't write, yeah.
Better just to not write.
Yeah, my fingers have gotten a little beefy since it happened, but otherwise, hopefully it should be okay. So, yeah.
Well, I will wish you the best. That's some crazy stuff, man. Yeah, crazy stuff.
My biggest fear right now is that, because he said I have to I basically have to keep flexing it and I have to keep working it. And my biggest fear is that I'm gonna flex my thumb and that little flap's just gonna go, and then everything's gonna. Just gonna be blood everywhere, and tendons are gonna be snapping left, right, and center. So
it's gonna like your intestines are gonna fall out of your thumb.
Death by thumb laceration. I'm just waiting for it. I know it's gonna happen. So.
Oh my gosh. Well, I really hope that does not happen to you on Father's Day. That would be an not exciting time.
Yeah, Father's Day already got effed because I like to go golfing on Father's Day, and I can't do that now. So I hope.
But you look at how cute Morgan's being.
I know. I could just spend time with my little boy as he runs away.
He only likes to be there when you're not looking at him. I've met him once or twice. Well, that's it. Thank you leaving us with that wonderful story of your thumb. Ow, I really hope you heal fast. And thank you so much again for being on here.
Thank you for having me. I see you've been doing this for a little while now, and I love.
It's been a while.
And I love all the different guests that you've had on and everything and stuff. And I was really surprised when you asked me to come on, and very tickled, and it was wonderful to be here and spend some time.
I'm actually going to tattletale on you. It was really funny when I invited you on. I walked in and there was, some sort of gathering was happening, and it was your wife was on my mom's Zoom television thing. And I walked in and I heard your voice in the background, and I'm like, oh, is that Bjorn? And I guess you heard me because all I heard was, oh shit, I'm in trouble.
Yeah, because we were talking about, I think it was it may have been the Potrero campfire.
That sounds right.
Yeah, I think it was the Potrero, like, kind of little virtual campfire thing we had or something like that. And somehow you came into the conversation. I think I may have been talking smack about you. Somehow, I said something, and your mom was like, I'll go get her. She's right here. I was like, no, she'll kick my ass. So I heard you coming in, and I was like, crap.
Well, I'm glad that I caught you, and I'm glad that you had time to do this with me.
That was wonderful. Thank you very much. That was a blast.
Have a great day, everybody. Goodbye.
Bye.